The air was thick with betrayal the night I stood outside Harbor Bites, a diner in Astoria, Oregon, catching my husband Mark and my daughter Sophie in a scandalous moment, their hands brushing too intimately over a sizzling griddle, my heart pounding in my chest as I pressed my face to the rain-streaked windows, their whispers dripping with a love that wasn't meant for me. For 10 long years I'd believed they were lost to the sea, swept away on a stormy hike, leaving me to drown in a sea of grief and the bitter burn of cheap wine, selling my last treasures, my wedding ring, my mother's locket, to chase every faint hope of finding them. Then that phone call came like a thunderbolt, a voice cutting through my fragile calm. Mark and Sophie were alive, not victims, but lovers, hiding in plain sight, their secret life a knife twisting in my gut. The shock of it still steals my breath, the way they turned our family into a twisted lie. And I'm only peeling back the surface. Stay with me, because the full story is wilder than you can imagine, and you'll want to hear every heart-wrenching detail. It all started back in 2015, when life was this warm, chaotic mess I cherished. I was 43, a florist with paint-stained hands and a laugh that could light up our cramped apartment, married to Mark, a 46-year-old fisherman whose rough hands and deep, rumbling laugh were my safe harbor. His love was the glue that held our quirky little family together, a steady presence amid the storm of everyday life. Sophie, my daughter from my first marriage, was a shy 19-year-old, her brown ponytail always slipping into her eyes, her journal her quiet escape from the world. Mark stepped into her life after her dad walked out, teaching her to mend fishing nets with those calloused fingers, taking her on coastal hikes where the salty air filled their lungs, earning her trust until she called him dad with a shy smile. We were a tight-knit crew, my flower bouquets brightening the kitchen table, Sophie's napkin sketches scattered around, Mark's fishtails spinning over dinner. A life stitched together with love and laughter, or so I thought. That stormy October day, they set out for Ecola State Park. A rugged trail we'd conquered together, our boots crunching leaves and our voices echoing off the cliffs. Mark was due at the docks that afternoon, and Sophie snapped a selfie, her and Mark grinning. Raincoats slick with mist, the gray waves crashing behind them like a wild heartbeat. Home soon, love you, she texted, and I smiled back, my heart full. Oblivious that those words would turn into a ghost that haunted my dreams. The storm hit with a vengeance, that night wind howling like a banshee, waves pounding the shore with fury. They didn't come back. Panic seized me, a cold hand around my throat, my calls to their phones unanswered. Each unanswered ring a twist of the knife deeper into my soul. By dawn, I was at the police station, my voice raw and trembling as I begged the officer to find them, my hands clutching the edge of the desk like it was my last anchor. The search that followed was a gut-wrenching nightmare. Coast Guard boats sliced through the churning surf, their sirens wailing. Volunteers combed the jagged cliffs with flashlights piercing the fog, dogs barking as they sniffed for any trace, but weeks dragged on with nothing but silence. Posters with their faces, Mark's weathered grin, Sophie's bright, trusting eyes, blanketed the town, taped 2 lampposts and shop windows, and I clung to a fragile hope, refusing to believe they'd abandon me. Mark loved me with a fierceness I'd felt in his embrace. Sophie was my baby, my heart. How could they leave? But as months bled into years, that hope eroded like the shoreline, leaving me hollow. I sold my rings, my savings, hiring private investigators who chased shadows, my nights blurring with the sting of wine. My flower shop wilting as I lost myself to despair, the petals falling like my tears. By 2023, I was a ghost of myself, rattling around a dingy rental apartment, the walls closing in with memories. My hands smudged with the faded colors of dead petals I couldn't bring to life. A coworker, bless her heart, dragged me to a gardening group one rainy afternoon, and a tiny spark flickered in the darkness. I battled sobriety with every ounce of strength I had left, each day a war against the bottle, and by 2025, I'd clawed my way to a year clean, finding a fragile peace, teaching kids to plant seeds of hope. Then came the call that turned my world inside out. It was July 2025, a muggy, restless night, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number, the screen glowing like a warning. Tom, a pie I'd clung to through the years, said, "Lila, they're alive." My heart leaped into my throat alive, but his next words gutted me, ripping open wounds I thought had scarred over. There in Astoria, at a diner, Mark and Sophie, living as a couple. I collapsed to the worn carpet, gasping for air. A couple, my husband and my daughter. Tom's voice was steady, unyielding. He'd tracked them to Harbor Bites, a diner they'd taken over, posing as lovers, their lives intertwined in a way that made my stomach churn. Photos flooded my phone. Mark, his hair now silvered but his face etched with familiarity, flipping pancakes with a grin. Sophie beside him, her ponytail gone, her hair dyed a bold red, her laugh a blade slicing through my chest. They looked radiant, thriving, a life built on the ruins of my shattered world. I retched into the sink, the betrayal a bitter, acidic sting in my throat, my hands shaking as I stared at the evidence of their deception. I drove to Astoria the next morning, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, the salty air stinging my eyes. The town was achingly familiar, all fishing nets draped over docks and the scent of the sea heavy in the breeze. The diner sat there, squat and bright, its neon sign buzzing like a taunt. I parked across the street, my breath hitching as I watched Mark pouring coffee with a steady hand, Sophie sliding plates with a grace that broke me. Their hands grazing with a heat that spoke of intimacy, their laughter a sound that tore at my soul. Sobs ripped from my chest, raw and uncontrollable. 10 years of pain crashing down like the waves I'd once watched with them. This wasn't some misunderstanding. It was their choice, a decade of my agony traded for their forbidden love. I couldn't storm in, not yet. My legs wouldn't carry me. I sent a note, my handwriting shaky, demanding answers. We met on the pier that evening, the waves crashing like my fury, the salt spray mixing with my tears. Why? I sobbed, my voice breaking, my eyes searching theirs for some shred of the family we'd been. Mark's face crumpled, his eyes glistening with regret. It was the hike, he said, his voice low and rough. Sophie slipped. We talked. And it ignited. We were terrified. Lila. We ran to escape the mess. Sophie's voice trembled. Barely a whisper, I felt invisible. You were always at the shop. And Mark. He saw me. Really saw me. I froze, my heart splintering into 1,000 pieces. My daughter, my husband. Choosing each other over the life we'd built, a love I couldn't fathom. I braced for a fight, my fists clenching, the anger boiling inside me like a storm. Mark's sorrow flickered in his eyes, but it wasn't enough. His murmur, "We'll come back," fell flat, his head bowing under the weight of his confession like a coward. They closed the diner, the neon lights dimming for the last time, but I wouldn't let them sneak back into my life. I turned away, the bitterness a hard knot in my chest, and walked off that pier, leaving them behind. The nights that followed were a battlefield, screams trapped in my throat, tears staining my pillow, silences that stretched like a void I refused to fill. I revived my flower shop, the scent of fresh blooms, a small victory, but it was mine alone, not ours. Sophie's sketches and Mark's fishing days were no longer my concern. They'd chosen their path, and I chose mine. Then came the twist that fueled my resolve, Mark's call. Confessing a loan shark's debt had sparked their flight, a dirty secret he'd hidden, thinking it justified their betrayal. I laughed, a harsh, hollow sound, and hung up. I didn't need their excuses or their debts. I poured my shop's earnings into a new start, a tiny house by the cliffs, the final payment a liberation from their shadow. This is my story, a betrayal that broke me, a love that turned to ash. And I walked away, stronger in my solitude, my heart hardened but free. If this story of betrayal and resilience gripped you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of storytellers. Drop a comment, tell me what you think of my journey or where you're watching from. Your support fuels these tales, and I can't wait to share more with you. Stay strong, keep watching, and I'll see you in the next video.